hold up. If you wanna go and take a ride with me, better hit me, baby, one more time.
More variety than you can imagine. Relax Radio.
Welcome back to the show. This is Relax Radio with me, Nick, giving you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We were talking about all the things that is going on in the UK. And a lot of things has been going on this past week. In case you guys didn't know, there is a lot of talk, with one about how the COVID restrictions are going to be easing in the country. Yeah, we'll be talking about all of that. And also, how, there's going to be issues with the children's school free meals, over the summer holidays. Yeah, that's something also that we will be talking about, as we go along in the show. And the other thing, though, is how the mask law and the 1 meter rule set to end in England. Yeah, so this is something that is going to be ending. That's right. It's been already that time of it's been a long time since we finally took this off, and now with effect, this is going to be put away. And if you want to be part of the show, well, all you got to do is simple. You got to hit me up on those numbers. You know what it is? It is 07852 473 473. That's right. Those are the magical numbers. You can always feel free to hit me up, call me, let me know what you guys think. And also don't forget you can download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store to carry us all day, every day. And with that said, though, getting back into the topic at hand, like I said, there's a lot of these things going on right now in the UK. And how Boris Johnson is actually expected to confirm he's confident that, the majority of the remaining COVID restrictions in the country right now will be lifted on the 19th of July. So he's saying, okay, this is something that we will definitely be lifting all of these restrictions in England. So making all of these, face masks voluntary and ending the 1 meter plus social distancing and the QR code sign-ins at restaurants will be among his press conference announcements. So these are things, that he will be discussing about, as we go along in the days. But overall, it is confirmed that this is what Boris Johnson is going to be talking about. And he will make sure that, if you're going to wear a mask, well, you can. It's a personal choice. You can wear it if you want to, is what he's trying to say. And he's trying to get at. So the prime minister said people must learn to live with COVID and exercise judgment. So according to the situation is what he's trying to get at. But also, the infections are expected to rise when the rules are being eased out. That's something that is undeniable. It's unavoidable, inevitable even. That the infections will increase. And this is something that they're saying, even though we're going to be easing out on the restrictions, there will still be risks. There will still be number of cases coming out. But the ministers believe deaths will be limited. And this is all thanks to the vaccinations. So they're saying, okay, all this will happen. The cases might definitely rise up. But we got to remember that even if it is going to rise up, well, there is the vaccination. So we don't have fear of any sort of deaths rising as well. So the fourth and final stage of the government's road out of a lockdown in England was delayed last month. Yeah, this happened, and then they delayed and they pushed it down to the 19th of July. So among the current measures are the rule of 6 for gathering. So only 6 people can gather in a particular place or time or space. So the table services in pubs, in restaurants, the capacity limits in these theaters, in cinemas, the closure of these nightclubs, and working from home guidance. So these are just, one of the rules that they will be lifting as soon as possible. So however, many of these remaining rules and guidances looks like they will set to be swept away. They're going to be completely removed and lifted off. And the prime minister is not expected to address self-isolation, travel restrictions, or the rules in schools. So Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland are in charge of their own coronavirus rules. And the Scottish government has even suggested it may retain some basic measures, including wearing masks at its next review in August. So they're saying, okay, a bunch of these places, especially when it comes down to Northern Ireland, Wales, and the UK and Scotland, well, these places will have their own rules, and according to their judgments and policies, they will follow through with this. And the chairman of the British Medical Association, Dr. Chan Nagpal, said it makes no sense to stop wearing masks in these enclosed public settings amid the rising number of cases. And he says, although there is a lot of these number of cases, and it is rising as we go along, we can see that there is a number of cases, and it is at a rise. Well, if we stop wearing this, what's going to happen is that there's just going to be more and more there's going to be more and more cases. So yeah, with that regards, also he went on to say that face masks are proven to reduce spread of this infection, and we can't understand why we would knowingly want to people to get infected. Is that what he's trying to get at? And he's trying to point out at this particular thing. So unions representing public transport and shop workers said their staff would face even more risks of infections if all these face mask rules are dropped. So if they drop all of these rules, they're saying, okay, the number of cases will definitely rise because, when you go into public transport, whether it's the metro or in the bus, or, it can be whatever, well, there's still going to be the cases of a number of people. Whether it's the tube, there's still going to be, the possibility of transmitting this disease because, you're going to be in an enclosed space. There's going to be people around you. You're going to be sitting with people besides you, in front of you, standing, sitting. It doesn't matter. It's going to be in a congested area. So that is the problem right there. And they're saying, okay, the number of cases will still rise. So make sure you guys wear your masks. So there will be, the staff members also for a lot of these public transports will get their infection rates will also rise if the mask rules are dropped. But I mean, technically, if you think about it, I mean, in any sort of way, even though you wear masks, there's still the possibility of getting the virus unless you are completely vaccinated. So meanwhile, Ryanair said face masks would remain mandatory on its flight in order to protect the health of their passengers and their crews. So yeah, this is something that is important. So in comments released by Downing Street before the Prime Minister gives his update at a 5 p.m. BST meeting news conference, Mr. Johnson went on to say, I must stress that the pandemic is not over and that cases will continue to rise over the coming weeks. But praising the successful vaccine rollout, he said he would set out how we can restore people's freedom. So right now he's focusing on that. His main focus is what? We got to get back everyone's freedom. We got to get everything back to normal. And, make sure the country is running again is what his current aim is. And he says, as we begin to live with this viruses, we must all continue to carefully manage the risks from COVID, exercise judgment when we are going about our lives is what he's trying to get at. He's trying to point at this particular thing and he's saying, okay, this is how we're going to address it. This is how we're going to look into this is what he's trying to go at. But the Downing Street said that the step 4 of the easing would go ahead in the next 2 weeks' time, only if the government's forecasts for easing the curbs have been met. In case you guys are wondering all of this, we have been touching about this, about the effectiveness of the vaccine, about the seriousness of getting ill and getting the vaccine, all of these things, all these 4 criteria will have to be met. So the verdict on these tests, on the jab rollout, the vaccine effectiveness, hospital admissions, and new virus variants would only be confirmed on the 12th of July following a review of the latest data. So yeah, the findings of this review on the use of COVID certification or vaccine passports and on social distancing measures are also due to be announced by Mr. Johnson. So Boris Johnson will have to answer to a lot of these things and he will be addressing a lot of these major points, in the coming days. So it is also understood that the restriction banning pub goers from ordering a drink directly at the bar will be dropped. So right now, okay, there are restrictions. So if you're a pub goer and if you go to the pub, you want to order a drink, well, usually now with the situation, they don't let you do that. But now you can. So this will completely drop. But also, we have to stress the Downing Street also is stressing out that the rules against travel to high-risk countries, the requirement to isolate if people test positive, as well as surge and community COVID testing programs would continue even after the 19th of July. So they said, okay, this is something that will happen. This will continue to happen even after, the 19th of July and the lifting of the restrictions. These things they stress will happen because look, first of all, if you're going out to another country or in another country in the map, let's say you go out to Europe, somewhere in Europe, well, if you're going to an amber list country or a red list country, well, you cannot travel there without a specific reason. There should be a reason why you're traveling to those countries. You got to have a reason. And also you have to make sure that you're vaccinated and you will have to undergo quarantine for 14 days. So this is something that will happen as well. Right now they're in the process of making sure that even if you get the vaccine, you don't have to isolate. But for now, well, you will have to follow through with those rules. And also, looking at this, Health Secretary Sajid Javid will update the Commons on the change at the same time. Mr. Johnson will be holding his briefing at Downing Street alongside England's Chief Medical Officer, Professor Chris Whitty, and the government's chief scientific advisor, Sir Patrick Vallance. So these are just amongst, the individuals that will be involved in this. And Looking at all these things, also behavioral psychologist Professor Stephen Reicher, one of the scientists advising the government, expressed concern about the face mask plans. And he said, okay, he did say in a recent interview as well, he said, we need very clear messaging. And in certain spaces, we are crowded, badly ventilated spaces, masks are crucial mitigation. And this is something, he's adding, this minister is adding, needed to provide support and proportionate mitigations to keep us safe along with the vaccine. That's the way out. So he's saying, okay, look, this is not a great idea for the whole face mask plan. I mean, making it like more of an optional thing. If you feel like wearing it, wear it. That kind of situation. What he's trying to stir aside now, he's like, listen, we have to make it clear. The message has to be clear. We have to show that, okay, in these certain spaces, like if you are going to a crowded place, like let's say you're going into even a coffee shop, and if it's crowded, and if it's a badly ventilated space, well, you have to make sure that you wear your mask. So these masks are important. You have to make sure that you're vaccinated as well, because you want to reduce the risk of passing on this virus to somebody else. So along with the vaccine, they say that this is just the way out. So Paul Nowak, the Deputy General Secretary of the Trades Union Congress, said it was vital people would be returning to COVID secure work sites. So they're saying, okay, so these places, it's vital that, a lot of these people are going to be coming back and they're going to be heading back to offices. And, it will be important that these sites are COVID secure sites. So yeah, these sites are where they will follow these rules, and they will most probably implement a lot of these rules as well. So he went on to say that I just don't think it is acceptable for the government to simply outsource its responsibilities to individuals and to individual employers. And yeah, these are just important matters and things that he wants to discuss and he wants to point out, with that particular regard. And looking at this also, he just said all of these things. So also, meanwhile, the Shadow Health Secretary, Jonathan Ashworth, urged the government to confirm what level of mortality and cases of long COVID it considers acceptable. Then he went on to warn that, letting cases rise with no action means no further pressure on the NHS, more sickness, disruption to, he says this is all going to be, we're going to get more pressure on the NHS, more sickness, disruption to education, a risk of a new variant emerging with selection advantage. So when he means selection advantage, what he's trying to say is exactly point out to the fact that these variants will become more resistant to the vaccine. And looking at all these things, also he went on to say that the NHS was well used to coping with pressures. We do it every year and every winter, so we are prepared. But from the start of the pandemic, the single most important measure for controlling COVID was getting people to isolate when they had no symptoms. So these are just some of the important things that they want to address, and they want to point out as much as possible, and they want to make sure that this is something that they will look into as the time goes along. So yeah, they will be talking about all of these things as we go along. And one of the things is, with these high vaccination rules, are they less important now? Are like the thing that we have to remember, though, with how amount of people are getting the vaccine right now, a lot of people have gotten their vaccines. Will these rules actually become less important? Well, we will definitely be talking about this as we go along in the show. So make sure you guys keep it locked right here. And also, don't forget, call me up, hit me on those numbers, 0728 07852 473 473. Those are the magical numbers. And with that being said, we're going to be taking a real quick break, and we will be right back after this.
Again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, how much has changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense. They can't
accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Well, you didn't do very well. And they get upset. And when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young, well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, might say to me, "You had one to forget." That's it.
Yeah, that sounds like a smart guy. I mean, yeah, that's the real fact of the matter. Yeah.
You know, he'd say to me, "You had one to forget. Get over it," and that was it. So I dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, "You've had one to forget," God, there'd be an inquest. An inquest. They'd for me. Why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you know, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of losing. You know, when it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. You know how much. A lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because, as you said, you know, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. You know, for the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid. I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
Now, there's a lot of conversation around who pays more taxes, if it is the rich or if it is the poor, right? But when you are basically going out and during a day, you know, you go to a restaurant, you have to pay taxes there. If you buy a car, you have to pay taxes there. So why is it even a conversation that, you know, the rich pay less taxes or the poor pay more taxes? Why is it a conversation like that?
Because it's true, the rich generally pay less tax. A rich person walks into a Tesco's or a Sainsbury's, they're not going to get a different bill than another person, right? They're still going to pay the same VAT on those goods, they're still going to pay the same thing. So that's all the same. However, the differences come in if you can pay yourself from your own company, you can structure it in a way that you pay less income tax through paying a bit of salary, paying dividends and so forth, and then also deferring income. Also, your pension payments or contributions can be different. So that increases your tax sort of gap, if that, you know, if you want to use it that way. Where a PAYE person just gets paid salary and bonus. And now those are the most highly taxed sources of income in the UK, definitely, you know, in the UK. We've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing, right? Because in a public company where the stock is traded openly on the stock exchange, the value of that stock is driven by supply and demand, it's driven by emotion, it's driven by news, it's driven by quite a lot of variables over and above the actual accounting or total net worth of that company. I mean, we've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing, right? And the company may still have value, it may still be doing quite a good things.
On
Don't be afraid to catch fish.
Relax Radio.
Welcome back to Relax Radio. Hey, this is me, Nick, giving you guys company and entertain with all that is going on all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're going to keep you up to date with what is happening in the UK, with what is happening around you. And yeah, this is Real Talk. And if you want to be part of the show, all you got to do is pretty simple. Hit me up on those numbers, 07852 473 473. That's right. Those are the magical numbers. And you can always call us up. Don't feel shy. Come this way. Hit me up. Let me know what you guys think. And also, don't forget, you can download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Carry us all day, every day. And yeah, also don't forget, check us out on our social media platforms. That's right. We're pretty much big on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on TikTok. We're on Facebook. All of these social media platforms, and also on YouTube. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow for all that interesting content. That's right. We're going to be posting up all these things, all the interesting things that is going on. And yeah, make sure you guys follow us up. And yeah, getting back to the topic at hand, we were talking about how the Boris Johnson is expected to lift most of the restrictions in the UK on the 19th of July. So right now, the real question is, as I asked before the break, with the high number of vaccinations in the country, will the rules actually become less important? Well, from the start of the pandemic, the single most important measure for controlling COVID was getting people to isolate when they had symptoms. So this is before the vaccine, before all of these things. But now, it's why so many, have urged the government to do more to support people financially when they do so. So right now, looking at all these things, also, everything else from face mask wearing and social distancing to to a lot of this contact tracing was about marginal gains on top. So as we learn more about this whole virus, we found out and we discovered more, we did more research, we had more data before symptoms developed, or among those who are asymptomatic, those marginal gains became more important. But alongside isolating when ill, the new tool in fighting the the virus is, of course, the vaccine. So getting vaccinated is one of the important things. So not only does the vaccine protect you, it also protects the others by, limiting the amount of the virus spreading across to more people. So, what is going to happen is it's cutting the chances of the virus spreading, and less and less people are getting infected with the virus. So that's very important. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to curb the virus, the amount of people getting infected and the transmission of the virus. We're trying to curb that in the first place. So the risk of passing the virus on is going to become reduced. So with the high number of vaccination uptakes, you can see a lot of more people. There has been a lot of people actually getting more and more vaccinated, people getting vaccinated, coming forward and getting vaccinated. All these measures are much less important than they once were. So yeah, wearing a face mask, social distancing, all these things have not become as important as it was in the beginning, because although it was not a big difference, well, it did make some sort of a difference. But now that we have vaccines, well, a lot of these things have changed. So that's why ministers feel they can ditch a lot of these rules as well. So in doing so, become arguably the first nation to relax restrictions on this scale, with infections rising, and attempt to learn to live with COVID. They're saying, okay, so right now what the UK wants to do, and especially in England, what we want to do is we want to make sure that, okay, we can ditch half of these things, because we don't really require it as long as the people are vaccinated, as long as people are making sure that they are vaccinated, getting both doses of the vaccine. And hopefully there will come a time where the government will also introduce some sort of a booster vaccine. And it maybe every 6 months, they can strengthen the vaccine as we go along. We have to see how that goes, how that will work actually with the scale of the things. But, there's been a review of social distancing measures that has been of particular interest to the hospitality industry, which says many venues are unable to operate profitably under the restrictions on capacity and table service rules. So they're saying, okay, a lot of our businesses won't be able to profit from a lot of the businesses, because we will have a capacity limit and the way the table service rules work. So with these regards, these are just some of the things that they are talking about and they're trying to address. So the findings of a review into COVID certification are also expected, and the use of these certificates to prove a person's COVID vaccination status or test status has been welcomed by some travel industry bosses and leading sports bodies. But the concept has raised concern over discrimination and privacy, because you have to understand, yes, this is yes, a lot of these travel and sport industries will agree with this, because one thing is we have to understand that like I always try to address and try to point out the failure. I rather not the failure, but the biggest problem with the COVID passport, this passport, this vaccination passport is, the possibility of employers even discriminating between hiring you or not hiring you based on whether you've had the vaccine or not. So right now the vaccine is not mandatory. Yes, obviously in a realistic world we're supposed to get vaccinated because that's how it works. But then since it's not mandatory, a lot of people are not going to take it, even though, that's just how it works. There's some people who will not go out of their way to take the vaccine. That's just how it works sometimes. So it could be multiple reasons. It could be so many factors that could factor into this. One, it could be a health complication. It could either be, vulnerability, or it could mean that, maybe it comes with people who are pregnant as well. So we have to consider all these things, when looking into getting people, getting them vaccinated. So this is just, one of the important things that they have to look into. And they are saying, okay, well, this will cause discrimination to people. So the finding of this review into the COVID vaccination are also expected. The use of the certificates to prove a person's COVID vaccination status has been welcome, though. They've been welcome all this. So looking at all these things, these are just, some of the things that they want to address. So the Prime Minister will give further details on the future of care home visits as well, talking about a different point. And, at the moment, care home residents in England can choose up to 5 people who can visit regularly, but no more than 2 people should visit at one time or in one day. That is, they're trying to curb, like I said, trying to curb the virus as much as possible, and as the best way that they can. So the Care Minister Helen Watley said visits are likely to completely go back to normal, as there is need for some precaution for residents, and face coverings were expected to remain a requirement. And they're saying, okay, this is something that we will need in the future. In the coming number of days, we will actually require all of these things. So infections are also going to be rising as we go along. So infections rise to autumn levels. If you look at the levels from autumn 2020, well, it was at a rise until from the 1st of September to the 1st of November. It was at a peak. And right now the cases are from the 1st of May to the 1st of July. Well, the coronavirus cases were actually at a really low until they sharply increased on the 1st of July. So yeah, there's a number of cases, and that's mostly, it's attributed to the fact that a lot of people are going back out there and the restrictions are easing up slowly, as much as possible. They're trying to ease it out. So looking at all these things, fewer people though are being admitted to hospitals right now. So a further 24,248 new coronavirus cases. So that's 24,200 plus cases of these new coronavirus cases were reported in the UK on Sunday. So yeah, yesterday they just reported all these things. So alongside another 15 deaths within 28 days of a positive test. So more than 63% of the UK adult population has now received a second vaccination dose, with 86% having now received at least a first dose. So number 10 has said the government is ensuring our preparations are in place to offer third booster doses to everyone aged over 50 and the most vulnerable over the winter months. So they're saying, okay, these are just some of the things that we will do, and we will make sure to implement as we go along with the whole virus situation in the country. And with what is going on in the country, they will definitely have to look into this as much as possible. I mean, looking at all these things, like I said, there has been fears, when you look at across the world, there has been a lot of these cases, and not only in England. Like right now, the rise in cases are crazy. So India may now be past the peak of its largest coronavirus surge, but some countries in Asia are expecting, and they're actually experiencing a lot of the rise in infection. So like I said, looking at the situation in the UK right now, well, we'll have to see the way it is going. There has been a lot of these cases rising in across the world right now and across Asia. So what has happened to the numbers, the case numbers? Well, the World Health Organization, or the WHO, recently deemed the Delta variant, which originated in India, the most transmissible of the variants identified so far. So some of India's immediate neighbors, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, saw surges in cases and in infections in May, although now some are seeing some downward trends in their numbers. So Nepal was actually hit the worst, with a dramatic surge in infections overwhelming the local health infrastructure. So that was at one point, we were at that stage at one point, but thankfully, we did pull through and we got the vaccination rollout going. So it's just these kind of cases. You can see how this is. I mean, if a country like the United Kingdom, if a place like the United Kingdom can suffer this, I mean, I can only imagine how other Asian countries will be going through this. So Afghanistan cases were at an all-time high in June, and the country's health minister Wajid Mahrouj said that 60% of cases in the capital, which is Kabul, were due to the Delta variant. And they said, okay, a lot of these cases in Afghanistan was mostly also now 60% of these cases were were due to the Delta variant. So the WHO has also recently reported rising case numbers in Bangladesh and Indonesia, Thailand, and Mongolia. So they, looking at all these things, like I said, there's been a lot of these cases, across a lot of these Asian countries as well. The rise is just exponential. So Bangladesh right now, which has a long border with India, has experienced an upward trend since mid of May. So a government study looking at the period from the 25th of May to the 7th of June show that 68% of the cases detected in the capital, which is Dhaka, were of the Delta variant. So 68% of the cases found in Bangladesh were because of the Delta variant. So right now it's implemented a national lockdown. So after, a lot of these concerns, a lot of people were concerned about this whole, impact of the new variant, and they were pretty much stressing on this. Now there's been a national lockdown in Bangladesh. So case numbers could climb further, though, is what, a lot of these researchers are saying, as the large number of migrant workers left the capital, Dhaka, for home elsewhere of the national lockdown. So although it was earlier than other countries in starting a vaccination drive, the rollout in Bangladesh has generally been slow, and it had to suspend a lot of these vaccinations in April. So Bangladesh administered 1.6 million AstraZeneca vaccines, which they've actually received from India, but then India halted exports of the vaccines in April. So Bangladesh resumed vaccinations on the 22nd of June on a limited scale, with China's Sinopharm vaccines received as a donation. So less than 3% of the population had been fully vaccinated as of the 30th of June. So Indonesia also has also imposed a lockdown in parts of the country until the 20th of July. So case numbers and deaths have been rising since early June, and the government has attributed this to the Delta variant. So looking at all these things, there's a lot of these cases going on right now. If you look at it, and if you look at all the cases, how it's rising, well, it is, it's no surprise with how things are going right now. The government will have to make sure that they pull through all of these, because look, a lot of these Asian countries as well, they're not as well equipped as we are when it comes to facing the virus. So with that regards, we have to understand there is a lot of these things going on, but looking at the way things are going and the way things are developing, well, their governments will definitely find a way. And it just goes to show, how the vaccine needs to be pushed out properly. So according to the health ministry in Indonesia, well, testing showed that nearly 60% of cases in the past 3 weeks were due to the Delta variant. So the Delta variant has properly spread across, a lot of these nations as well, not just in the UK, but other parts of the world as well. So the pace of the vaccines have risen in the country, but so far less than 5% have been fully vaccinated. So a total of less than 5% of the nation's population has just gotten their vaccine. So just 5% out of 100%. So that just shows a lot of people have not come forward to get their vaccines. And it could be a multitude of cases. It could either mean that they don't have the vaccines, or it could either mean that people are not willing to get the vaccines as of yet. So the president, Joko Widodo, has set a target of conducting 1 million vaccinations a day and doubling that by August. So looking at all these things, these are just, some of the things that is going on. And also cases in Thailand as well. The recent rise in cases and deaths in Thailand has been attributed in part to the Delta variant by the country's Department of Medical Sciences. And right now they're blaming the Delta variant. And they're saying, okay, it's because of this that there has been a rise in cases. There's been a number of cases because of this. So earlier this week, the department said that 26% of total cases reported in the capital, that is Bangkok, in the past week, the Delta variant has been identified. So it recently has been detected in islands like Phuket, which is now allowing in foreign visitors in order to boost its tourism industry. Because look, we have to understand a lot of these poor countries, these poor nations are going through a lot of these troubles, and they are going through a lot of problems as well with that regards. So it's sensible. I can see why they're opening up their industries, although they will have to require to tighten at least some sort of restrictions. And also, Thailand had only fully vaccinated around 40 4% of its population by the end of June. So the Prime Minister, Prayut Chan-o-cha, recently told media that there were risks, but we have to accept the risks so Thai people can actually start making a living again. And like I said, it's really unfortunate, the way things are going and the way how all of these things and cases are going. A lot of these countries are opening up their borders again because they have no choice. The tourism because many of these countries like Indonesia, and we got, Bangladesh, India, a lot of these countries, Thailand as well, will require tourism to, boost their country's economy. So it just goes to show, the reason why they're doing this. And, with the associated risks, I mean, it's just something that they need to do. I really, it's very difficult, but then, we have to see that a lot of these countries, like the G7 summits that we had, they will have to look into these kind of matters and find some way that they can support them. Although they've done their donations, a lot of these donations, but then, it just goes to show right now we are still at a shortage of vaccines when it comes to a lot of these Asian countries as well. And we'll be talking about this and a whole lot more, as we go along in the show. But we're going to be taking a real quick break right now. Taking a look at your time. It is 3:45. Good afternoon. Climb Mount Everest. That is that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
They're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It will make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, if you think about it, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you will interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there. You're quite right.
I've been doing this for quite some time. Hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. Okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh, so that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" Hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. Got me thinking. You want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with these kind of shirts when you're riding? There must be a purpose behind it, right?
Well, when you say a purpose, Nick, what I do, I wear the shirts, mainly one, because they're nice and bright, so they make me visible, especially if I'm riding on the road.
Okay. That's very important, right? Because you want cars,
very important. And also, like, people see me in like calves, and perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on air, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And it gives them something to look at, and It makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Girls, ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick.
Hold up. If you wanna go and take a ride with me, better hit me, baby, one more time.
More variety than you can imagine. Relax Radio.
Welcome back to Relax Radio. That's right. This is RELAKS, where we're trying to keep it relaxed. We're trying to keep it chill, but at the same time, we're trying to keep it real as well. Yeah, this is Real Talk with me, Nick, giving you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. And if you want to be part of the show, all you got to do is pretty simple. You can always come this way. Hit me up. If you have anything you want to talk about, well, hit me up on those numbers, 07852-473-473. That's right. Those are the magical numbers. You can always feel free to call me up and let me know if you have anything that you want to particularly talk about, or you want to bring up. Well, I'll always be you can always feel free to let me know. And also, don't forget, you can check us out on Instagram. We're pretty much big on Instagram. We posting a lot of videos, a lot of stories, so you guys better make sure that you guys definitely check it out. And also, don't forget, you can download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Carry us all day, every day. And with that being said, getting into the midst of it, what is going on right now? Well, there has been extremes. The Extremes Committee validates the Antarctic record heat. With the records climbing in the world right now, you can see that the ice is actually melting. And the ice is melting and the ice is actually breaking. Yeah, that's a pun intended. But at the same time, the situation is not as pretty as it seems. It's actually pretty dire. So a new record high temperature for the Antarctic continent of 18.3 degrees Celsius has been confirmed by the World Meteorological Organization, or the WMO. So it occurred on the 6th of February last year at Argentina's Esperanza Research Station, and the mark was widely reported at the time, but has now been validated by a WHO committee set up to check extreme weather data from around the globe. So at the same time, the group projected an even higher Antarctic claim for 2020 of 20 degrees, 0.75 degrees Celsius. So these are just some of the the claims that they are pushing through, and they looked into, and they try to talk about these things. But with that regards, they are they're talking about all these things, and a lot of this climate change is going on. And also the same group projected an even higher claim, like I said, because of this. So this again received international headlines, but the committee found the sensor setup incorporated into a Brazilian permafrost experiment had not been properly projected, and they've not been protected from direct sunlight. So they're saying, okay, these kind of seems a little extreme for us. And thermometers are supposed to record air temperatures inside a ventilated covering or screen. So the WMO team said that on a Seymour Island, this took the form of a modified length of scaffolding pipe and would likely therefore have introduced a warming bias into any data readings. So they're saying, okay, these readings are not quite 100% accurate. I mean, the numbers and the cases, the way it is rising, it's a little too much to say, but there has been nonetheless an increase in temperature. So temperatures on the normally frigid Antarctic continent have been rising, especially along its peninsula, the great tongue of the terrain that stretches across the north in the direction of South America. So over the last 50 years, the peninsula warmed almost 3 degrees Celsius. So although no official temperature recordings have gone up to above 20 degrees Celsius on the continent, and it's close by islands, it's just a matter of time, says Professor John King from the British Antarctic Survey, or the BAS. And they're talking about these things, and they're saying, okay, these are just some of the things that we are expecting, and this is something that it's really unavoidable at that particular cost. These things are just unavoidable at the moment. And he said on looking at all these things, he said, if you considered all the area covered by the Antarctic Treaty, that's all the land south of the 60 degrees south latitude, that we had a temperature of 19.8 degrees Celsius in January 1982 on the Signy Island. So he's saying, okay, these things are that will happen, but it's not predictable when it comes to that. And one of the the drivers of the rise in the temperature is the strengthened westerlies that now blow around the continent. And they're saying, okay, this powerful airflow, there's been a lot of this air and this gust of air, this gush of air that produces warming conditions on the eastern leeward side of the peninsula's mountainous spine. They're saying, okay, this is just something that is happening, and there's a lot of this airflow, and it's been really warm. So what causes a lot of the rise in the temperatures because of this? So such warm, a lot of these winds are known across the earth, across the world, and wherever they occur, they tend to have a local name. So right now they're calling this the Chinook winds that drop over the Rockies and Cascades in North America are just examples of this phenomenon. So in the Antarctic, they're known as the Foehn winds, or a title originally used in the Alpine of Europe. So they're saying, okay, these are just what we're going to call these winds. So these are the winds that are responsible for the heating and the rising temperatures in the continent. And a lot of the incidents of these warmer conditions have been increasing on the Antarctic Peninsula. So the Foehn winds appears to be moving poleward as well. So with that regard, they're talking about this, and it's looking at all these things. There has been an increase in the temperatures, and they're saying there is a possibility that the ice caps can actually melt, and that's going to cause a rise in sea levels as well. So we want to avoid all of these things. So with that regards, right now, they are saying that there has been a rise in cases. So we just have to look, and we have to make sure that, the countries right now, they are doing, and there is an action plan. They are talking about this, and they are trying to get into this. And a lot of these countries, one of the highest polluting countries in the world, also, a lot like China, for instance, are taking initiatives, are taking steps as well. North America as well is doing their best. The United States are doing their best, and also the UK right now. We are the forefront, and this will definitely be brought up in the COP26, which is to be held in Glasgow later this year. Yeah, they're going to definitely bring this up on the COP26, and they will definitely talk about this particular matter at hand, how these winds are affecting the Antarctic caps, and how the ice is right now melting, and there's going to be more and more issues with that regard. So the UK will also be looking on these things, and they will definitely talk about this, and hopefully they will also implement a lot of these net zero emissions as we go along in the years. But let's see how it goes. I mean, this is something that we are hopeful that they will bring along, and that they will address as the coming of days come. Because look, what we can do is, like, right now we are transitioning into a lot of these things, when it comes down to the buses, when it comes down to a lot of these stations that they're trying to install in the UK right now. They're trying to install a lot of these stations where you can charge your vehicles. They're trying to make sure that a lot of these our dependency on these coal fuels, these fossil fuels, will be reduced in the coming of days. And in the petrol, when it comes to petroleum, when it comes to gasoline and all these things, we will make sure that we move and transition over to more greener fuels. So yeah, this is just one of those greener fuels that they are looking into and they're considering at the moment. Hopefully this is something that they can get into, and we can invest and make sure that we get there, because right now the UK is planning for a net zero, which is going to be, most probably, they're saying, okay, the goal and the target is 2050. That's right. They're saying that 2050 is going to be the year where, we implement this whole net zero thing. But right now we have to make sure that we start. In order to reach that goal, we will have to start now. We'll have to make sure that we begin now, and we make sure that we address these kind of issues right now, because right now is the most important time. Because if we don't do it now, well, a lot of these things will affect us in the future coming of days. And there has been already records, and there has been, they've seen, and they have observed a lot of species, plants and animals passing, they are going extinct because of this. They're getting endangered. They're going extinct. So it's just gets to show that net zero is important. We need to make sure that we can do this as fast as possible, and definitely, look into this as much as we can. But with that being said, we're going to be taking a real quick break, and we will be right back after this. And taking a look at your time right now, it is 3:59. Good evening.
Again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, has how much it's changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense. They can't
accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Well, you didn't do very well. And they get upset, and when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young, well, still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, I'd say to me, you had one to forget. That's it.
That sounds like a smart guy. I mean, yeah, that's the real fact of the matter, yeah.
He'd say to me, you had one to forget. Get over it. And that was it. So I'd dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. An inquest. They'd me, why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of losing. When it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. How much. A lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because, as you said, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. For the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid. I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.